The stars looked different when you knew everyone beneath them was dead. Captain Daewon stood on the bridge of the UNS Incheon, watching Eden Prime grow larger on the view screen. The planet was beautiful from orbit, green and blue with white clouds drifting across continents where 4 million humans had built their homes. His hands gripped the railing harder than necessary. The distress signal had cut off 3 days ago. 3 days of silence. 3 days of traveling as fast as the ship could push through space, praying they would arrive in time. They were not in time. The communications officer turned in her seat, her face pale. "Captain, I'm picking up readings from the surface. No life signs. No power signatures from any of the settlements, nothing." Daewon felt something cold settle in his chest. "Nothing? Scan again." "Scanning now, sir." The officer's fingers moved across her console. Minutes passed. Each second felt like an hour. "Confirmed, Captain. No human life signs detected on the planet. Population reading is 0. 4 million people. Gone." The tactical officer spoke up, his voice tight. "Sir, I'm detecting chemical traces in the atmosphere. Unknown compound. It's dissipating now, but 3 days ago it would have covered the entire planet." "A weapon," Daewon said quietly. It was not a question. "Yes, sir. Bioweapon, from the analysis. It's nothing in our databases." Daewon closed his eyes for just a moment. His sister lived on Eden Prime. His sister, her husband, their 2 children. He had talked to them just a week ago. His niece had shown him a drawing she made of the Incheon. She wanted to be a ship captain like her uncle when she grew up. "Take us down," he said. His voice did not shake. It could not shake. He was a captain. Landing Site Alpha near the main settlement. The ship descended through the atmosphere. Through the windows, they could see the cities below. The buildings stood intact. Streets were empty but undamaged. Cars sat abandoned where their drivers had left them. Everything looked normal except nothing moved. No lights in windows. No ships in the sky. No people walking the streets. The Incheon landed in the main spaceport. The landing pad was full of other ships, civilian vessels that would never fly again. Their crews were dead inside them. Daewon assembled a team. 20 Marines in full environmental suits, medical staff, scientists. They opened the airlock and stepped onto Eden Prime. The air was safe now, the poison had broken down. They could breathe it if they wanted. None of them took off their helmets. The city was a tomb, bodies lay everywhere. In the streets, in doorways, collapsed in parks where they had tried to run. The weapon had not been kind. Daewon could see from their twisted positions that death had taken a long time. Hours, maybe days of suffering. Children lay curled against their parents. Old people had died in their beds. Young people who should have had decades of life ahead of them would never see another sunrise. One of the Marines vomited in his helmet. Another stood frozen, staring at a playground full of small bodies. The medical officer was crying openly, tears running down her face behind her visor. Colonel Tae Yang walked beside Daewon. The intelligence officer's face was carved from stone. "This was deliberate," he said. "Look at the dispersal pattern. This weapon was designed to cover the whole planet at once. Every city, every town, every farm. They wanted to kill everyone." "Who?" Daewon asked, though he already knew. "The Vrax, sir. We've been tracking their fleet movements. 3 Vrax dreadnoughts were in this system 4 days ago. They left before the colony went silent. The Vrax Dominion. One of the older species in the Galactic Council. Powerful and proud. They had made no secret of their contempt for humanity. Humans were newcomers, primitives who had only reached the stars 200 years ago. The Vrax had been traveling between worlds for 10,000 years. They believed humans did not deserve the territory they claimed, did not deserve a voice in the council. Apparently, they had decided to do something about it. Daewon's team moved through the city for hours. They found data terminals still running, their screens displaying the last moments of the colony. Security camera footage showed people collapsing in the streets, clutching their throats, their chests. The weapon attacked the lungs first, then the nervous system. Death came slowly with full awareness. People knew they were dying. They had time to say goodbye, time to hold their loved ones, time to be afraid. In the Central Administration Building, they found Dr. Jiwoo. She was alive. The xenobiologist had been working in a sealed laboratory when the attack came. The lab's life support was independent, designed for working with dangerous samples. She had survived while everyone around her died. For 3 days she had been alone in that lab, watching through the windows as her world ended. They carried her out on a stretcher. She was not injured, just in shock. She had not spoken a word since they found her. That night back on the Incheon, Daewon received a message from Earth. He took it in his quarters, alone. Ambassador Hana's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired, old. Captain Daewon, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, my sister? He asked, though he knew. We confirmed the names against the colony records. Your sister and her family were in New Seoul when the attack happened. There were no survivors in that city. There were no survivors anywhere. Daewon nodded slowly. He felt numb. Everything felt distant, like he was watching himself from far away. There's more, Hana said. Her voice was bitter. We've received intelligence from our contacts in the Council. They knew, Daewon. The Council knew the Vracs were planning this. 3 ambassadors warned them about unusual Vracs fleet movements. The Council chose not to act. They were afraid of starting a war with the Vracs, so they let 4 million humans die instead. Yes. Daewon was quiet for a long time. What happens now? Earth is convening an emergency session. The Premier is addressing the General Assembly tomorrow. We're pulling all our diplomats back from Council space. As for what comes next, Hana paused. That depends on what Earth decides, what humanity decides. After the call ended, Daewon sat in the darkness of his quarters. He thought about his niece and her drawing. He thought about 4 million people who woke up one morning not knowing it was their last day. He thought about the Galactic Council, those ancient civilizations who thought themselves so advanced, so enlightened, letting genocide happen because it was convenient. For 200 years, humanity had worked so hard to be accepted, to prove they were civilized, to show they could be trusted with a place among the stars. They had followed every rule, signed every treaty, attended every boring diplomatic function. They had restrained themselves, held back, played nice, and for what? So the Council could watch while the Vracs murdered millions? Daewon stood and walked to the window. Eden Prime turned below, beautiful and dead. Somewhere down there was a grave that held everyone he loved. He pressed his hand against the cold glass. They want to see what humans are capable of, he whispered. Civilization ends here. The message went out on all channels, broadcast across human space. By morning, everyone would know what happened at Eden Prime. Everyone would see the images, hear the recordings of those final hours. The galaxy would watch and wait to see what humanity would do. They would not have to wait long. The United Nations Assembly Hall had never been so quiet. Every seat was filled. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in their designated spots, faces grim and tired. Above them, on massive screens, images from Eden Prime played in silent horror. Empty streets, bodies in doorways, playgrounds full of the dead. The images cycled endlessly, making sure no one could look away, making sure no one could forget. Premier Sung-ho stood at the central podium. He was an old man, nearly 80, who had spent his entire career working for peace. He had negotiated Earth's entry into the Galactic Council. He had shaken hands with ambassadors from a dozen alien species. He had believed, truly believed, that humanity could find its place among the stars through diplomacy and patience. That man was gone now. The person standing at the podium had watched those images from Eden Prime for 3 days straight. He had not slept. He had not eaten much. He had only thought about what came next. 4,300,742, he said. His voice was rough. That is how many human beings died on Eden Prime. We have their names. All of them. Every single person. Their ages, their occupations, their families. 4 million individual lives ended in 72 hours of agony. The hall remained silent. People were crying. Some stared at the screens. Others looked down at their hands, unable to watch anymore. The Vracs Dominion claims they were conducting a military exercise, Sung-ho continued. They say the bioweapon was released accidentally. They have expressed their regrets and offered compensation. He paused. They offered us money for 4 million dead. A murmur ran through the assembly. Anger, finally breaking through the grief. The Galactic Council has called for an investigation. They estimate it will take 5 to 10 years to complete. They have asked us to be patient, to trust in their justice. Sung-ho's hands gripped the podium. 3 council members knew this attack was coming. They chose to do nothing. The council knew and let it happen because they were afraid of the Vracs. Minister Yunji stood from her seat in the front row. She was the Secretary of Interstellar Relations, a career diplomat who had spent 20 years building relationships with alien civilizations. Premier, if I may. Sung-ho nodded. Yunji approached the podium. Her voice was steady, professional. I understand the anger. I feel it too. But we must think carefully about our next steps. Earth cannot win a war against the Galactic Council. We are one species against hundreds. Our military is strong, but we are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. If we act rashly, we could doom humanity to extinction. So we do nothing? Someone shouted from the assembly. No, we use diplomatic pressure, economic sanctions. We work with the species who support us, build a coalition, isolate the Vraks politically. It will take time, but it is the safe path. The smart path. Admiral Young-soo rose from his seat. He was Supreme Commander of UN Space Forces, a veteran of 40 years. And while we take the safe path, what message do we send? That you can murder millions of humans and face nothing but stern words and economic sanctions? Yunji turned to face him. We send the message that we are civilized. That we do not respond to genocide with genocide. Civilized, Young-soo repeated. He walked to the podium and Yunji stepped aside. Let me tell you what civilized means to the rest of the galaxy. It means weak. It means safe to attack. We have spent 200 years being civilized, following their rules, proving we are not the violent primitives they think we are. And what did that get us? Eden Prime. He gestured to the screens. They did this because they think we will not fight back. Because we have been so careful, so restrained, so desperate for their approval. They tested us and we need to give them an answer. General Hyunwoo stood next. He commanded Earth's ground forces. Admiral Young-soo is correct. I have reviewed the intelligence from our networks across Council space. 47 species are watching right now, waiting to see what we do. If we choose the diplomatic path, 17 of those species have already drawn up plans for their own attacks on human colonies. They see Eden Prime as proof that humans are acceptable targets. The assembly erupted in angry voices, people shouting, demanding action. Premier Sung-ho raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes for the hall to quiet down. Admiral Young-soo, the Premier said, you mentioned an answer. What answer do you propose? Young-soo pulled up a file on the main screens. The images from Eden Prime disappeared, replaced by technical documents. Protocol Broken Chain. These are contingency plans developed over the past century by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Plans for a scenario exactly like this one. They have been classified above top secret, known only to the highest levels of military command. Dr. Kyung-mi stood and walked to the podium. She was Chief of Psychological Warfare Division, a brilliant scientist who studied how different species thought and reacted. For 120 years, we have been preparing for the possibility that the galaxy would turn against us. We studied them, every species in the Council. We learned how they think, how they fight, what they fear. We developed weapons and strategies that no alien species would ever conceive of, because they think differently than we do. She pulled up more files, weapon designs, battle plans, research papers on alien psychology. Humans are unique in the galaxy. We are more adaptable, more creative, more willing to break rules than any other species. They call us primitive, but our so-called primitive nature is our greatest strength. We think of solutions they would never consider. We take risks they would never dare. We have been holding ourselves back, restraining our nature to fit in with them. Protocol Broken Chain removes all restraints. Minister Yunji looked pale. You are talking about abandoning every treaty we have signed, every law of war that the Council recognizes. You want to make Earth a rogue state? No, Admiral Young-soo said. I want to make Earth a state that no one dares attack. The Vraks killed 4 million humans because they thought we were soft. Let us show them what humans are really capable of when we stop trying to be like them. Premier Sung-ho looked out at the assembly. A vote, then. Before we proceed, I want everyone in this hall to understand what we are deciding. This is not just about Eden Prime. This is about what kind of species humanity will become. If we activate Protocol Broken Chain, we cannot undo it. We will be crossing a line. The galaxy will fear us or they will try to destroy us. There will be no middle ground, he paused, letting his words sink in. But if we do nothing, if we take the diplomatic path, more colonies will die. The galaxy will learn that human lives are cheap. Our children and grandchildren will live under the shadow of that lesson. The vote was called. Electronic ballots, every representative entering their decision. The numbers appeared on the screens. The hall was silent as they counted up. In favor of protocol broken chain 89% against 11%. Premier Sung-ho looked at the numbers for a long moment. Then he nodded. Admiral Young-soo, you are authorized to proceed. Dr. Kyung-mi, activate all research divisions. General Hyun-woo, prepare ground forces for deployment. Minister Yoon-ji, recall all diplomats from Council space immediately. He turned to face the assembly one last time. Earth formally withdraws from all Galactic Council treaties effective immediately. We will no longer be bound by Council law. We will no longer seek Council approval. As of this moment, humanity stands alone. Admiral Young-soo pulled up a final document on the screens. It was a message, short and simple. This will be transmitted to every species in the galaxy within the hour. The message read, "You had 200 years of humanity restrained. Pray you do not get 200 days of humanity unleashed." That night, across human space, things that had been sleeping began to wake up. Weapons factories that officially did not exist started production. Ships built in secret shipyards powered up their engines. Soldiers trained in techniques banned by the Council received their deployment orders. Research labs unlocked files that contained knowledge the galaxy had never seen. And in a small room deep beneath the UN building, a computer activated a program that had been waiting for this moment. The program sent out millions of signals across the galaxy, waking up agents who had been living among alien species for decades. Deep cover operatives who everyone thought were just human merchants or students or tourists. Now they had new orders. Simple orders. Find the ones responsible for Eden Prime, and teach them what happens when you make humanity angry. The Vrax colony of Tark 7 went silent on a Tuesday. It was a mining colony, nothing special. 40,000 Vrax workers extracting rare metals from the planet's crust. They sent their regular status update at 800 hours. At 0805, all communication stopped. When the Vrax Dominion sent a ship to investigate 3 days later, they found the colony intact. The building stood undamaged. The mining equipment sat idle but functional. The communications array was working perfectly. Everyone was just dead. 40,000 Vrax killed in their sleep. No signs of struggle. No damage to any structures. The investigation team found trace amounts of an unknown gas in the air recycling systems. By the time they detected it, the gas had already broken down into harmless compounds. They had no idea what it was or where it came from. 2 weeks later, another Vrax colony went dark. Then another. Then 3 in one day. Commander Bora sat in the command center of the Ghost Fleet, watching reports flow across her screens. The Ghost Fleet did not officially exist. 60 ships built in secret shipyards beyond Pluto, crewed by volunteers who had signed away their identities. No names, no records, no way to trace them back to Earth. These ships had no transponders, no communication arrays, nothing that could identify them. They were invisible, and they were hunting. Target acquired, her tactical officer reported. Vrax transport ship, carrying supplies to their military base on Tark 12. No escort. Intercept course, Bora ordered. Standard procedure. The Ghost Fleet ship approached the Vrax transport at high speed. The Vrax crew never saw them coming. One moment they were traveling through empty space. The next moment a ship appeared from nowhere and fired. The transport exploded, debris scattering across the void. No distress signal. No survivors. No evidence except wreckage that would take weeks to find in the vastness of space. That was the 23rd Vrax ship the Ghost Fleet had destroyed this week. On the Vrax homeworld, panic was spreading. The Vrax High Command held emergency meetings trying to understand what was happening. Colonies going silent, ships disappearing, and everywhere the same pattern. No warning, no explanation, just death arriving without sound. It is the humans, War Leader Thak insisted. It must be. This started after Eden Prime. Impossible, First Scholar Ven replied. We monitor all human military movements. Their fleets are in their own space. We have detected no ships entering our territory. Then how do you explain 40 colonies destroyed in 6 weeks? Ven had no answer. Deep in Vrax space, in a city called Rathkor, Agent Jun Seok worked at a trading company. He had lived here for 8 years, pretending to be a human merchant who preferred alien society to his own kind. The Vrax tolerated him because he was useful. He understood their technology, helped them maintain equipment they had bought from other species. He was quiet, polite, and never caused trouble. He was also a deep cover operative for Earth intelligence. Jun Seok sat at his workstation, looking at the schematics for Rathkor's water treatment plant. The Vraks had designed their cities to be efficient and automated. Everything connected to everything else. Central computers controlled power, water, sanitation, traffic, climate control. It made life easy. It also made the cities incredibly vulnerable if you knew what you were doing. Jun Seok uploaded a small program into the treatment plant's control system. The program was elegant, simple. It would wait for 7 days, then activate. When it did, the treatment plant would stop cleaning the water. Instead, it would start adding trace amounts of chemicals from the industrial processing system. Nothing immediately toxic, just enough to make people sick over several weeks. By the time the Vraks figured out what was happening, thousands would be ill. The investigation would take months, and by then, Jun Seok would have moved on to the next city, the next target. He was one of 4,000 human agents working across Vrak space. They were all doing the same thing. Quietly sabotaging infrastructure, creating accidents, turning the Vraks' own systems against them. On a Vraks military base, Captain Minji led her team through the darkness. Special operations trained for scenarios that the Galactic Council had declared war crimes, 12 soldiers moving like shadows, using technology that bent light around them and made them invisible to sensors. The base was home to 3,000 Vrak soldiers, the same type of soldiers who had deployed the bioweapon on Eden Prime. Minji's team reached the base's central power reactor. They placed charges carefully, precise locations calculated to create maximum effect. Then they retreated to a safe distance and waited. The charges detonated. The reactor did not explode. Instead, it began releasing radiation in a slow, steady leak. The base's sensors would detect it eventually, but not for several hours. By then, everyone in the base would have received a fatal dose. Minji watched from a hillside as the base's lights began to flicker and fail. "Target neutralized," she reported, moving to secondary objective. Her team disappeared into the night, leaving behind another mystery for the Vraks to solve. They would find the charges eventually. They would realize it was sabotage, but they would never find the people who did it. In Earth's Psychological Warfare Division, Dr. Kyung-mi reviewed the reports with satisfaction. The campaign was working better than expected. The Vraks were fracturing under pressure. Their leadership was fighting among themselves, paranoid and desperate. Some thought it was human attacks. Others believed it was internal sabotage, traitors within their own ranks. A few were convinced their automated systems had become sentient and turned against them. All of it was by design. "Terror is information," Kyung-mi explained to her team. "The Vraks do not fear death. They are warriors willing to die in battle, but they do fear the unknown. They fear losing control, so we give them chaos, random attacks, unexplained failures. We make them paranoid, make them suspect everyone, even their own people." Tech specialist Sang-woo pulled up a new report. "The Vraks have started executing their own engineers. They think some of them are working for us." "Excellent," Kyung-mi said without emotion. "Accelerate the infrastructure sabotage. Make them more paranoid. I want them to tear themselves apart trying to find enemies that aren't there." The Galactic Council sent repeated messages to Earth, demanding explanations, demanding that humanity stop whatever they were doing. But Earth did not respond to any communications. As far as the galaxy could tell, humanity was simply not listening anymore. Some species began pulling their people out of Vrak space. They did not want to be associated with the Vraks when humanity's full anger arrived. Better to be far away, uninvolved, not worth remembering. The Vraks High Command held an emergency session. War Leader Thak addressed the Council of Leaders. "We must surrender. Offer reparations to the humans. Beg for mercy. We are the Vraks." First Scholar Ven shouted. "We do not beg. Then we die," Thak said simply. 62 colonies destroyed. 300 ships lost, 17,000 dead in sabotage attacks. And we have not seen the human fleet yet. This is just their advance work. When their real military arrives, we will be annihilated. You give them too much credit. Humans are primitives. Primitives who are destroying us without declaration, without diplomacy, without mercy. They are doing to us exactly what we did to them, except they are better at it. The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested fleeing, abandoning their space entirely. While they argued, 3 more colonies went dark. Commander Bora watched the latest reports from her command chair. The Ghost Fleet had been operating for 9 weeks now. They were running at peak efficiency. No losses, no mistakes, no evidence left behind. Commander, her communications officer said, I'm picking up a transmission from the Vrax High Command. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, looking for any human authority who will listen. What do they want? They're asking for terms. They want to negotiate, Bora smiled. It was not a kind smile. Ignore it. Continue operations. Commander, they're offering full reparations. They're willing to hand over everyone responsible for Eden Prime. I said continue operations. The communications officer nodded and returned to her work. Bora looked at the tactical display showing Vrax space. So many targets left, so much work still to do. They wanted to teach humanity a lesson about power. The lesson was being taught. Class was not dismissed yet. Somewhere in Vrax space, a colony administrator woke up to find his city's traffic control system had failed overnight. Hundreds of cargo vehicles had crashed in the automated shipping lanes. In another city, the food processing plants stopped working. In a third, the climate control systems reversed, flooding buildings with frozen air. None of it was fatal. Not yet, but it was constant, unending, exhausting. The Vrax were spending all their time fixing problems, investigating incidents, trying to understand what was happening to them. They were learning what it felt like to be helpless. To watch your world fall apart piece by piece, to not know when or where the next attack would come. They were learning what Eden Prime felt like from the inside. The Galactic Council chambers had never seen such chaos. Counselor Thex stood at the central podium trying to maintain order while representatives from 200 species shouted at each other. His forearms gestured for calm, but no one was listening. 3 months had passed since Eden Prime and the galaxy was coming apart. The Vrax Dominion no longer exists, the Korthan representative shouted. 140 colonies destroyed. Their military is gone. Their government has collapsed. An entire civilization erased in 89 days. And 7 other species have suffered mysterious catastrophes, the Pellan ambassador added. Species that publicly supported the Vrax or voted against investigating Eden Prime. This is not coincidence. Counselor Thex finally managed to quiet the room. The evidence suggests human involvement, but we have detected no human military movements. Their fleets remain in their own space. Because they are not using fleets, a new voice said. Ambassador Hana walked into the chambers, the first human to enter this room since Earth's withdrawal from the Council. She looked different, harder. She wore a black uniform instead of diplomatic robes, and her title had changed. She was now Minister of Final Solutions. You have no authority here, Thex said. Earth is no longer part of this council. I am not here as a diplomat, Hana replied. I am here to deliver a message. The Vrax Dominion deployed a bioweapon against Eden Prime, killing 4 million civilians. They did this with the knowledge of at least 3 council members who chose not to warn us. You all watched while genocide happened because it was easier than confronting the Vrax. The matter was under investigation. The matter is closed, Hana interrupted. Justice has been served. The Vrax are gone. The 7 species that supported them have been dealt with. Now we come to the second matter. The council itself, murmurs ran through the chamber. Angry voices, scared voices. Earth demands formal recognition of our autonomy, complete sovereignty over all human space, reparations from the council treasury for the lives lost at Eden Prime, and a public admission of guilt for failing to prevent the attack. Counselor Thex's skin changed color, a sign of anger in his species. You demand? You are 1 species against 200. You have no leverage for demands, don't we? Hana pulled up a display. Your armada is currently gathering at the edge of our solar system. 3,000 ships from 40 species. You plan to force Earth back into compliance. If we must, Thex admitted. This violence cannot continue. You have destabilized the entire galactic order. Then come, Hana said simply. Come to our system. See what happens. She left without another word. Admiral Daewon stood on the bridge of the UNS Incheon, now the flagship of Earth's defensive fleet. He was watching the Council Armada approach through the outer reaches of the solar system. 3,000 ships. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. They were coming to put humanity back in its place. They were entering a kill zone. Range to lead elements? Daewon asked. 4 million kilometers in closing, his tactical officer reported. They are maintaining formation. No signs of weapons charging. They think we will surrender. Colonel Jihoon said from his station. They think the sight of their armada will make us back down. Daewon smiled coldly. Begin activation sequence. Around the solar system, things began to wake up. Things that had been floating in the darkness for 100 years, waiting for this moment. Not ships, not weapons in any traditional sense. Humanity had spent a century studying physics in ways the Galactic Council never imagined. While the aliens built bigger ships and stronger shields, humans had been asking different questions. Questions like, what happens if you create a localized gravity well? What if you can manipulate the fabric of space itself? What if you treat physics not as a law but as a suggestion? The Council Armada passed through the orbit of Neptune. Warning lights began flashing on their ships. Something was wrong with space itself. Navigation systems went haywire. Ships that were in formation suddenly found themselves light years apart. Vessels that tried to turn around discovered they were still moving forward, no matter which direction they pointed. Space had become folded, twisted, impossible to navigate. What is happening? The Korthan Fleet Commander demanded. His science officer looked terrified. They have weaponized spacetime itself. The humans have built devices that create artificial gravity wells and spacefolds. We are trapped in a maze that exists in 4 dimensions. Our sensors cannot track it. Our computers cannot calculate it. 3 council ships collided with each other, their navigation systems completely confused about where they were. 2 more jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared, possibly forever, lost in the impossible geometry humans had created. Daewon broadcast to the entire armada. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. Welcome to Earth's solar system. You are currently caught in what we call the labyrinth. It is a network of spatial distortions that extends from Neptune's orbit to Mars. You cannot navigate through it. You cannot fight your way out of it. You can only die in it slowly, as your ships run out of fuel and supplies. On the screen, he could see the council ships trying desperately to organize. Some were firing weapons randomly, hoping to hit something. Others were attempting to retreat. None of it worked. However, Daewon continued, we are not without mercy. I will give you a choice. Accept Earth's terms immediately, or we will activate the second layer of the labyrinth. In the second layer, space does not just fold, it tears. Your ships will be pulled apart at the molecular level. It is not a pleasant way to die. Counselor Thex's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked old and defeated. This is madness. You are breaking the fundamental laws of warfare. What laws? Daewon asked. We left your council. We do not follow your rules anymore. These are human rules now. Do you accept our terms? You cannot sustain this. The energy requirements. We have been preparing for this moment for 100 years. We can sustain the labyrinth for as long as necessary. Can your fleet survive that long, trapped in impossible space? On the council ships, panic was spreading. They had expected a battle. They had expected to overwhelm Earth with superior numbers. They had not expected to be trapped in a nightmare where space itself was the enemy. The Korthan Fleet Commander sent a private message to Thex. We must accept. My ships are already suffering navigation system failures. If they activate this second layer, we will all die. Other commanders sent similar messages. They had come to enforce the Council's will. Now they were begging to survive. Counselor Thex closed his eyes. We accept Earth's terms. Excellent, Daewon said. Power down your weapons. Drop your shields. You will remain in the labyrinth until the treaty is signed. Representative So Young is waiting at council chambers with the full terms. I suggest you hurry. We would hate to have an accident. The council ships complied. They had no choice. Representative So Young stood before the Galactic Council once more. She was young for a human ambassador, barely 30, but she had been chosen for this moment because she understood what was at stake. Her parents had died on Eden Prime. These are Earth's terms, she said, projecting a document for all to see. First, complete autonomy for humanity. No council laws apply to human space. Second, reparations of 1 trillion galactic credits to be paid over the next decade. Third, a public admission that the Council failed to prevent Eden Prime despite having prior knowledge. Fourth, any species that threatens human colonies will be considered to have declared war on all of humanity. These terms are outrageous, a representative objected. You are demanding privileges no species has ever received. We are demanding basic security, So Young replied. Something you failed to provide. Sign the treaty or your fleet dies in the labyrinth. Those are your options. The council members looked at each other. Some were angry. Some were frightened. All of them were calculating the cost of refusing. The vote was called. Species after species agreed to the terms. A few tried to vote no, but their fleet commanders sent frantic messages begging them to reconsider. In the end, the treaty passed with 87% approval. Councillor Thex signed the document with 3 of his 4 hands. "This is not the end," he warned. "You have made enemies today." "No," So Young said quietly. "You made an enemy when you let Eden Prime happen. Today we just made that clear." Back on Earth, people watched the news broadcast with mixed feelings. They had won. Humanity was safe, independent, feared by the galaxy. But the cost had been enormous. They had become something different. Something the galaxy would never trust again. Premier Day-Wan addressed Earth that evening. He was no longer just an admiral. After the treaty was signed, he had been elected premier by unanimous vote. The old government had resigned, acknowledging that Earth needed new leadership for this new era. "We did what was necessary," he told the billions watching. "We showed the galaxy that human lives have value, that we will not be victims, that we will not trust others to protect us. Some of you are troubled by the methods we used. I understand. I am troubled too. But remember Eden Prime. Remember 4 million people who died because we trusted the Council to keep us safe." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The galaxy fears us now. They call us monsters. Perhaps they are right." 20 years after Eden Prime, the galaxy had learned to fear the word human. Premier Day-Wan looked older than his 63 years. 2 decades of leading Earth through its isolation had carved lines deep into his face. He stood at the observation deck of the orbital station above Earth, watching ships come and go. Human ships, always human ships. No alien vessels were permitted in Earth space without explicit approval, and that approval was rarely given. "Another delegation has arrived, sir," his aide said. "The Methkari. They wish to discuss trade agreements." "Tell them what we tell everyone," Day-Wan replied. "Submit their proposal through official channels. We will review it in 6 to 8 months. They say it is urgent. Everything is urgent to them. Everything is an emergency. They want us to move on their schedule, show them we care." He turned away from the window. "Let them wait. They need us more than we need them." It was true. In 20 years, humanity had become the most technologically advanced civilization in known space. While the Galactic Council stagnated, bound by tradition and bureaucracy, Earth had pushed forward. New weapons, new ships, new ways of manipulating physics that made other species nervous. Human space was a black box to the galaxy. They knew Earth was doing something in there, but they had no idea what. And that uncertainty kept them afraid. Dr. Ji Woo walked through the Eden Prime Memorial. She was one of the last survivors of the attack, pulled from a sealed laboratory while everyone around her died. Now she directed the memorial, ensuring no one would ever forget. The memorial was not subtle. It was not designed for comfort or closure. It was designed to hurt. The entire planet of Eden Prime had been preserved exactly as it was found. Bodies left where they fell, buildings untouched. A frozen moment of death that visitors could walk through. And everywhere, speakers playing recordings, the final messages of people who knew they were dying. Parents telling their children they loved them. Friends saying goodbye. 4 million voices preserved forever. A group of alien ambassadors walked through the memorial, flanked by human guides. They were from the Kelvin Collective, a species that had recently made first contact with humanity. They looked shaken. "Why do you show us this?" one of them asked. "Why preserve such horror?" "Because you need to understand," Ji Woo replied. She had stopped crying about Eden Prime 15 years ago. Now she just felt cold when she walked these streets. This is what happens when civilization ends. This is what happens when you make humanity angry. But we had nothing to do with this attack. Our species only discovered faster than light travel 5 years ago. I know. And I am sorry you had to see this, but you needed to see it before you signed any treaties with us. You needed to understand who you are dealing with. She gestured to the bodies around them. We show you this not as a threat, but as a warning. We chose to become monsters to avenge these people. We chose to abandon civilization and become something the galaxy fears. Think carefully before you interact with us. Think carefully before you trust us. The Kelvin ambassadors were quiet for a long time. One of them was crying. Their species had not known war in 300 years. They had believed the galaxy was fundamentally peaceful. Eden Prime taught them otherwise. Lieutenant Subin sat in the cockpit of her fighter, running pre-flight checks. She was 22 years old, born 3 years after Eden Prime. She had never known the old humanity, the one that tried to fit in with the Galactic Council. To her, human superiority was just a fact. Everyone in the galaxy knew humans were the most dangerous species. That was simply how things were. "Ghost Squadron, this is Control," the voice came through her headset. "You are cleared for Patrol Route Gamma 7. Sensors detected an unidentified vessel at the edge of the system. Investigate and report." "Understood, Control." Ghost Squadron launching. Her fighter lifted off from the carrier, joined by 5 others. They moved through space with grace and speed that no alien ship could match. Human fighters were works of art and terror, designed not just to kill but to demoralize any enemy who saw them. They found the unidentified vessel an hour later. It was small, clearly not a military ship. Some kind of explorer or merchant. "Ghost Leader, this is Ghost 3, her wingman called. "Identifying marks show Pellin registry. Probably just a lost trader." Subin armed her weapons anyway. "Ghost Squadron, weapons hot. Approach with caution." The Pellin ship immediately began broadcasting surrender signals. Its captain appeared on the communication screen, all 4 of his eyes wide with fear. "Please, we are lost. Our navigation failed. We mean no harm. You are in human space without authorization," Subin said coldly. "That is a violation of galactic law. We did not know. Please, we are just merchants."
"We have families."
Subin kept her weapons locked on the Pellin ship. She could destroy it with one shot. It would be easy. Justified, even. They had violated human territory. Part of her wanted to fire. "Ghost Leader," her wingman said quietly. "Orders?" She thought about it. Thought about all the training that taught her humans were superior, that aliens could not be trusted, that showing weakness invited attack. Thought about Eden Prime, which she had visited a dozen times. Thought about the memorial and all those bodies. But she also thought about the Pellin captain's face. The fear. The desperate plea for his life. "Escort them to the border," she finally said. "And transmit a warning. Next time, any ship that enters human space without authorization will be destroyed. No exceptions." "Understood, Ghost Leader." The Pellin ship fled as soon as they reached the border, disappearing into faster-than-light speed. Subin watched it go, feeling something she could not quite name. Relief, disappointment? She was not sure. In a government building on Earth, Elder Sung-ho met with a group of teachers. He was 98 now, long retired from politics, but people still sought his advice. The teachers had come to discuss the curriculum for Earth schools. "The children are learning that humans are superior to all other species," one teacher said. "They are taught that aliens are dangerous, that trust is weakness, that violence is always the answer. Is that not true?" Another teacher asked. "Have we not proven it? We are the most powerful species in the galaxy now. But at what cost?" The first teacher replied, "I had a student last week who suggested we should attack the Korthan colonies, just to remind them who was in charge. She is 12 years old." She was not joking. Sung-ho listened quietly. He had feared this. He had argued against Protocol Broken Chain 20 years ago, warning that it would change humanity forever. He had been overruled, and maybe that was the right choice. Maybe Eden Prime left no other option. But now he wondered what kind of species they were creating. "We became monsters to protect ourselves," he said finally. "That was necessary. But we must be careful not to raise our children as monsters. Strength is important. Fear is a useful tool. But if we lose our ability to show mercy, to choose peace, then we become no better than the Vraks." "The Vraks no longer exist," a teacher pointed out. "Exactly." Ambassador Tae-hyun prepared for the most important meeting of his career. He was Earth's diplomatic representative to the Kelvin Collective, trying to negotiate humanity's first real treaty with an alien species since Eden Prime. It was delicate work. The Kelvin were peaceful, technologically advanced, and genuinely interested in friendship with humanity. They were also terrified. The Kelvin ambassador, whose name translated roughly as Bright Thought, met Tae-hyun in a neutral space station. The alien was small, about half human size, with 6 limbs and soft blue skin. They looked nervous. "Thank you for meeting with me," Tae-hyun said. "Of course, though I admit, after visiting Eden Prime, my people are reconsidering contact with humanity. I understand, the memorial is intentionally harsh. It is more than harsh. It is a promise of annihilation for anyone who wrongs you." Bright Thought paused. "My people wonder if we can trust a species that responded to genocide with genocide." Taehyun nodded slowly. That is a fair question, and I will give you an honest answer. No, you probably cannot trust us completely. We are not the peaceful species we once pretended to be. We are capable of terrible things. We prove that. Then why should we sign a treaty with you? Because we are also capable of learning, of choosing better paths. For 20 years we have been isolated, angry, focused only on revenge and survival. But that cannot last forever. Younger humans are growing up who never knew the old galaxy, who only know fear and superiority. We need to change course before we become permanently twisted. He pulled up a document. This treaty is not just about trade or defense. It is about proving to ourselves that we can still choose civilization, that we can still show mercy, make friends, trust others, not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to risk it. Bright Thought studied the treaty terms carefully. You are asking us to take a huge risk, to trust that humanity will not turn on us as you turned on the Virax. Yes. And in exchange, you get access to human technology, human protection, and human honesty. We will not lie to you. We will not pretend to be something we are not. We are dangerous. We are capable of violence. But we are trying to be better than our worst moments. The Kelvin ambassador was quiet for a long time. We will need to discuss this with our people. This is not a decision I can make alone.